Previously on Preeminence Christian Fellowship.
And why does the book begin with names? Shemot. Because it is a reminder to us that Yahweh kept his promise to Jacob. That is the beginning of trust. That Yahweh is God of his word. Two things it tells me: that the trouble that you're seeing today, you will never experience that enemy and that danger ever again. Be still, but not still and frozen in place, scared. Just have peace and watch me deal with your trouble. He gave Moses an assignment. Stretch your arms. So now the time for praying is over, Moses. Now is the time to put the plan I gave you into action. I don't know who this is for right now, but God is saying, I've heard your prayer all of 2021. Now it's time to put the plan I gave you into action. Trust in God's character. Rest in God. Understand his timing. Seek truth. And try Thanksgiving.
I'm so very happy that you have joined us for the final part of trust. As we've gone through this series, I hope that you have gleaned and learned many different things. Obviously, first and foremost, what trust is and why we should have trust typically and generally only in Yahweh. I understand that we'll have trust in man at certain times. We'll have to place our trust in man. But ultimately, myself, as I'm going to model it, I'm not saying that I trust in man per se. What I'm saying is that I actually trust in God to work things out in my favor. So as I am entrusting, or I trust someone, for instance, my oldest daughter has a friend in the neighborhood. When I am entrusting her to go to the neighbor's house and go on a shopping trip, I'm entrusting my daughter to them. But I am not really trusting in man. I am not really trusting in that friend's mother and father to keep Peyton safe. I am trusting ultimately in Yahweh to keep her safe. Because as we learned the definition of trust over these weeks, trust is having a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. A firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. But ultimately, as I've said, throughout this journey, what I hope that you have gleaned above all else is that trust is having a firm belief in the reliability of Yahweh, in the truth of Yahweh, in the ability for him to overcome any and every circumstance. That is what true trust is. Trust is about relationship. You see, I can't just trust a stranger to do something. I'm having faith in them. As we discussed, when Abraham and Yahweh met, Yahweh said, Abraham, have faith in me and come follow me to this new place that I'm going to show you. When he was talking to the children of Israel, he is telling them to have trust in me. Because I've brought you out of so many things, so many difficulties. We've been through so many battles. Trust in me that I will propel you to this last victory now that your feet are at the edge of Canaan. I could understand if they were kind of shaky when they were in Egypt, because they did not know God. But when God brought them out, God then became their redeemer, and they should have put trust in him because he had their best at heart. Not the Pharaoh, not the Egyptians who oppressed them, but the one who freed them and brought them now out of Egypt. But because he brought them out of bondage and did not bring them automatically into the promised land, they doubted. And they had a distrust of God. It was, well, you brought us out of Egypt, but now you brought us into the wilderness to die. And now you've stuck us in between Pharaoh and the sea. What choice do we have? It's just death and death. Those are our choices, God. But God knew that he was going to provide victory and a way out for them. So let's start right where we left off last week. We started off with the acronym of TRUST. So the T in trust was trust in God's character. So throughout this journey, as we model and use the children of Israel as the model for this entire trip, as they have left Egypt, gone through the wilderness, and eventually will be reaching the promised land, this is a journey about trust. Oh, I'm smiling because I don't want to give it away. So this is a journey about trust, okay? And in it, Yahweh models and shows us that his character, he shows us his love and affinity for his children, because he made a promise to Abraham and to Jacob, to make them into a great nation. So in last week's sermon, we discussed how Balaam came to curse the children of Israel, but instead of levying a curse against them, he actually ended up blessing them. And in Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, he says, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. Now, that's the promise that he made to Abraham. If we now fast forward to Numbers chapter 23, verses 10 and 11, we're going to see the fulfillment of this promise that he made to Abraham. In Numbers chapter 23, as Balaam attempted to curse the children of Israel on behalf of Balak, their enemy, Balaam now is speaking to Balaam. Balaam is now speaking to Balak, and he's saying in verse 10, who can count the dust of Jacob or number even a fourth of Israel? That right there shows you that he kept his promise to Abraham and to Jacob to make them a nation, to make their offspring a nation, a mighty nation. So when it says, who can number even a fourth of Israel? That's to show you how massive in number they are. And now Balak in verse 11 says to Balaam, what have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but all you have done is bless them. So right there, we see the fulfillment where it says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. But the fact of the matter is that once Yahweh blesses, there is no man, no demon in hell, no devil, nobody, no entity who can then go back and curse you. The blessing is permanent. The blessing is final, because the blessing is relational. And that's what trust ultimately is. Trust is about a relationship. And when you have a relationship with Yahweh, when you have a relationship with Yeshua, no man, no demon in hell can reverse that what he has blessed. No one can reverse the blessing, because with the blessing comes Yahweh, comes his seed, comes his spirit that indwells within our body. And it is the seal of completion that we are his and he is ours. That's the good news of the gospel, that once saved, always saved. Once a son, always a son. Once a daughter, always a daughter. Once favored, always favored. Once blessed, always blessed. So Yahweh is revealing to the children of Israel and to us that he is Yahweh of his word. He is revealing his character through these things. You see, It's only sometimes in trials and tribulations that we get to see the full majesty and overflowing nature and character of Christ. How can he be Christ, our banner and our victory, the conqueror, if there is no battle to fight, if there is no enemy to face? So he allowed Pharaoh to chase after the children of Israel and catch up to them at the Red Sea so that they could see Yahweh, my victory, so that they can see Yahweh who makes a way out. When he made the sea part and they walked through on dry land, they are seeing the evidence of the God, the true living God that they serve. They are seeing the character of God. Even though they went from Egypt into the wilderness, into the desert, they went into a dry, hot place. And instead of saying, God, we trust you, they were looking at their situation and their circumstances. And they didn't know Yahweh's character. So God then introduced himself as Yahweh, your provider. I am providing food and water in a dry place. I'm providing food and water in a desert land. I am Yahweh who provides. But without the desert and the wilderness, if they were just walking through the land flowing of milk and honey right away, they would not understand that it is Yahweh, the relationship with Yahweh, that sustains them and not the land. Oh, foreshadowing, boy, we are speeding right here. So that's trust. That's the T in trust. We have got to trust in God's character. The R stands for resting in God. When you have a full trust of God, just like David, even when David was chased off of the throne by Absalom and he was fleeing, he had a trust that everything would be okay, that Yahweh had his back. So even in the worst of times, God is going to provide us rest and is going to provide us a way out. So we can rest in him because we trust him. So it doesn't matter how dark it gets. It doesn't matter how bleak it gets. For what in our perception, we've got to know that Yahweh still is in control and still has our back. As was when Jacob was fleeing from Esau. So we ended last week with the promise that God made to Abraham. But now let's look this week at the promise that he made to Jacob, who eventually he changed his name to Israel. So in Genesis chapter 28, verse 13, here it is that God is meeting Jacob, who is fresh off of tricking his brother Esau into selling him his birthright. And now he's on the run for his life. His father has sent him away. He is in the desert. And in here it says that he took a rock just to show you that he left with nothing but the clothes upon his back. He didn't even have something to where he could put under his head to sleep properly. So he put a rock under his head. And that's where Yahweh met him. Hey, in just really quick, in verse 11, it says, when he had reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. Hey, he started having a dream. And in this dream, verse 13, it says, I am Yahweh, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Verse 14, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Verse 15, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Woo! So that right there is just a mouthful right there. Here it is, Jacob, who is running for his life, who has nothing but the clothes upon his back, sleeping on a rock. Yahweh meets him in a bad, terrible, dark situation and is telling him, I will be with you and I will make your descendants as numerous as the dust upon the ground. I will never leave you nor forsake you, and I will bring you back and give you ownership on the very ground that you are lying on. So the thing that he does not own, the thing that he does not deserve, he cheated and got a birthright that he didn't rightfully deserve. He's running for his life. He has nothing. He's in a dry, dark, cold place, and God is saying that I'm going to give you the very land that you are laying on. The very thing that you think is not yours, the very position that you think you'll never get, the very house that you think you cannot afford, the car that you think that you will not get, the husband that you think you don't deserve, the wife that you think God will never send you. God is saying, if you will just only submit and listen and trust in me, I will give you the very thing that your heart desires. I will multiply and protect you in this dark and cold time of COVID. Yes, my God is saying, I've got you. If you would only just trust in me. Hey, trust in God. Trust in God. He says, I will go with you. I will go. Now, where have we heard that? Just a few weeks ago, as we were talking about trust, as the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, they saw a pillar of cloud by day. I will go with you. See how he's keeping his promise to Jacob, who became Israel. I will go with you and lead you back to this land. Hey, he's keeping his word by going wherever they go. So the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night, going through the wilderness and the desert. See, the cloud and the pillar, they were for guidance, but they just weren't for guidance. Hey, the cloud and the pillar, when they came out, you got to understand, they were guiding by day and guiding by night. But they weren't just guiding the children of Israel. That's not the only thing that Yahweh is doing. Hey, he's also offering them protection. Oh, you see, the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night is Yahweh's presence amongst his people. He is saying that I am with you and I will go before you. Hey, and if there's trouble chasing you from behind, I will stand in between you and trouble. As we saw when the cloud went around and got in between Israel and the armies of Egypt, and the fire, which was never in the same place as the cloud, came and was in the gap between the armies of Egypt and the children of Israel. He is our protector. So he's saying that, yes, I'm there to guide you, but I'm also there to protect you. It wasn't just about protecting them against the armies of Egypt, but we know that the desert can be a very hot place in the daytime and a very cold place at night. So here it is, the cloud is going by day. The children are following this cloud. But it's not some tiny little cloud in the sky. No. This cloud is such that it keeps them cool as they're walking in the desert. This cloud not only provides guidance, but it provides protection from the heat of the sun. So as they're walking in comfort. I'll take a little creative license right now and say that it was probably a misty cloud, so that as they were walking, they felt a little dew on their faces and it refreshed them as they walked. And then when nighttime came, you've got all kinds of dangerous animals, scorpions, snakes, all types of things in the desert that only hunt at night. But at night, I need to be able to see.
So Yahweh then said, I know what you need in the day, and I know what you need at night. Before you even ask, you're not even in your right mind to ask me, I will provide. Hey, so we're seeing the character right now. We're seeing this character on full display, that I will give you whatever you need. And you need a protector, I'll give you a protector. If you need sustenance, I'll be your sustenance. So at night, this pillar of fire warms them, makes it comfortable for them at night, keeps the wild animals away. So you see, Yahweh is protecting, keeping them warm and comfortable, and keeping the wild animals away. That's what God is doing for us. In this dry and cold time, God is saying that I'm able to keep the heat off your back and keep you refreshed. When it's cold outside, I'll warm you up. I'll be right next to you all day, every day. Yahweh was the shade in the daytime, and he was the warmth in the night. He was the protection from the animals in the day and at night. God is establishing with the children of Israel trust. It's about trust. He's saying you can trust me. Throughout this whole entire trip through the wilderness, God is introducing himself to the children of Israel. Why? Why is that so important? As we come to the close, I want you to get key points of this. And as you see, I've got the camera shifted again today. I'm standing in the same spot, but I've changed the perspective of the camera. I pray that throughout this journey now, that your perspective of this story will change. You see, because before we judge the children of Israel, we've got to understand that we're more similar to them than dissimilar. They're in a strange land for 400 plus years. They're more Egyptian than they are Israelite. We're living here on earth, a corrupted, sinful rock. This is not what Yahweh created it to be. But we've been living here for me, I say 44 plus 1 years on this earth. I am more earthly than I am heavenly. I am subject to gravity. I'm subject to the things of this world, even though Yahweh in his word says that I am an alien living in this world, because I will go back to where my spirit came from, which is the Father. My rightful place is in heaven, in the midst of Yahweh and the rest of the saints, But for right now, I've been living and steeped in this. That's why it's hard to trust. Because we are living in such a time of distrust, where people have let us down so much. And that's all we know is distrust and abuse. So when Yahweh comes and he tells us that he wants to love on us and he wants us to trust him, we're suffering and we're shaking. And we don't know if we can trust. And so we're just like the children of Israel. When God tells us to do something, we want to know, well, God, how's this going to work out? What's the real plan? See, and if you're anything like me, before I go on vacations, I'm a planner. I look at everything, up, down, left, right. I research the plane that we're about to fly on. I research what is the transportation from the airport to the hotel. I research the hotel. I research activities around there. I look at the weather. I look at the local customs and food and dialect. I look at every single little thing, because that's what I am. When I go on vacation, I'm a planner. So leaving Egypt, somebody like me, I've got 1,000 questions. I've got my notepad out and I'm saying, okay, Moses, check. So we're supposed to be leaving Egypt at what time? And we're going to be arriving at the promised land when? And how do we know how to get there? Oh, this cloud going to lead us in the daytime. And what you say?
some fire at night. Okay, is there a plan B? Can I stay here and like wait until y'all get there and then y'all send somebody to come get me? I'm going to have questions. See, now my wife is not going to have the same questions because my wife is a woman of faith and my wife trusts, okay? My wife is spontaneous. So she's saying, oh, we leaving Egypt? When my bags are packed. Oh, I don't care. Oh, we going to the promised land? No problem. I don't care how we get there. I'm just following y'all. And that's my wife. She gone. She's out. See? Now, for me, I'm not going to say that her faith is stronger than mine or her trust is stronger than mine. I'm just going to say that she's impetuous and fun-loving. But I'm trying to tell you right now, I would be more, unfortunately, like those Egyptians. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and just, I'm sorry, be like more like the Israelites then, questioning things. But that's what we're doing now. But God is saying, Orlando, but you know me. You've gone through all these situations and circumstances. I've brought you out of so much. When are you going to really, really trust me? Hey. You see, this journey for the children of Israel, this thing that we have been studying for the past 4 weeks, this journey was never about the promised land. Ooh. This journey was not about the land. This was a journey of trust. See, we're so focused on the promised land and we're so focused on what God is going to give us that we miss that the journey was about his presence. Hey. And God's presence always being there, no matter what. Rain or shine, hot or cold, Egyptians or no Egyptians, scorpions in the desert, feast or famine, Yahweh's there. Hey, in Numbers chapter 9, beginning at verse 15. Numbers chapter 9, beginning at verse 15. If we just turn there just really quickly, I want you to see what this was about and why I said it was about the relationship. You see, because anytime that the cloud moved, the children were supposed to move. But every time the cloud paused, the children were supposed to pause and encamp for the night, for the week, until the cloud moved again. So what it is that Yahweh is teaching them to move when he moves and to stay when he stays, to listen to him. And that's why even when he told Moses to strike the rock and water would come forth, but the next time he told him to speak to the rock, Moses was upset and angry and he struck the rock. And so Yahweh was mad. I now understand why Yahweh was so mad and heated, because he had given a directive to the leader and the leader did not follow what he said to do. And this was all about, are you listening and obedient to my voice? So this was about establishing a relationship with the children of Israel. Numbers 9 verse 17, whenever the cloud lifted above the tent, the Israelites were to set out, meaning leave. Wherever the cloud settled, the Israelites encamped. At Yahweh's commands, the Israelites set out, and at his command, they encamped. See, if he said move, they moved. If he said stay, they stayed. At verse 18 still, as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, they remained in camp. Whenever the cloud remained over the tabernacle for a long time, the Israelites obeyed Yahweh's order and did not set out. Sometimes, verse 20, the cloud was over the tabernacle only a few days at the Lord's command, and they would encamp. And then at his command, they would set out. Verse 22, whether the cloud stayed over the tabernacle for 2 days or a month or a year, the Israelites would remain in camp and not set out. But when it lifted, they set out. Hey, so this journey and this story about trust is not about the promised land. It's not about the thing that was promised to the Israelites. It was about the person. It was about the being. It was about their God who had made a promise to them, who had made a promise to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. We're so focused on the land that we miss the beautiful story about his presence. And that's what's happening with us today. We're so focused and we're so locked in on what God has promised to give us materially, the things that we have prayed for. And now we're saying, God, you owe me. You owe me this. You owe me that. And we're missing the fact that God has been with us always, since before birth. So instead of focusing on where you are not, let's focus in on who's walking with us throughout this pandemic. Let's focus in on who is guiding us throughout this pandemic. Let us focus in on who is protecting us along the way. Let's focus on Yahweh. Let's focus on the trust that he wants us to have in him. So as we finish out and officially close this series, T, trust in Yahweh's character. R, rest in Yahweh. Rest and relax, knowing and understanding that he has you and has your back. You understand God's timing. Understand that he will do what needs to be done at the right time, at the right moment, in the right place for our good. S, seek truth. I love that one. It's the simplest concept. Seek truth, because wherever truth is, Yahweh is. Hey. And finally, the T, try Thanksgiving. I understand that it's going to be hard. I understand that the journey is not always going to be comfortable, but thank him along the way. Thank him not because the journey is comfortable, but thank him that he is with us through the journey. Hey, God bless you. Thank you once again for joining us at Preeminence Christian Fellowship, the church where love reigns. I am so happy that we have gone through this series on trust, and it's something that we definitely need to watch and review over and over again. I'm so very thankful about Yahweh changing my perspective on the journey that the children of Israel made from Egypt to the Promised Land. As I've said before, as you read and as you study these stories over and over again, your perspective changes. You pull different things out of the scripture. And, you know, I always thought that the good news and the great news about this story about Exodus and the children of Israel going through the wilderness, going through the desert periods, going and conquering and attaining what Yahweh had promised to give them, I always looked at it as a faith walk, to be honest with you. As, you know, we are, you know, having faith that God will do what he said that he would do, which he did. But now I'm looking at it with a different perspective and a different lens. And I'm realizing that this was a trust walk. That God isn't saying that I need you to just have faith in me, but trust in me. Trust that I brought you out of Egypt. Trust that I eliminated and eradicated the enemy that had you enslaved, that had you in bondage, that had you fearing that they were coming back to take you again. Trust as I provided a way out at the Red Sea. Trust as I provided manna in the desert, water in the desert. I provided you shade in the desert. I provided you warmth in the desert. I mean, the desert truly was a comfortable place because of Yahweh. But the major shift in my perspective was the fact that this journey was not about the promised land at all. This journey was about his presence and his gift. And it was a foreshadowing. The cloud and the pillar, it was a foreshadowing. The pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire was a foreshadowing of the Holy Spirit that was going to be given to us. Hey, see, so that's why we don't need a visible cloud in the day and a pillar of fire at night. Because after Yahweh came and died upon that cross, when Yeshua offered that sacrifice, one sacrifice for all time, his spirit, that spirit that was guiding the children of Israel physically, is now dwelling within our hearts. And we know his voice. We hear him. All we have to do is trust him. May God bless you.